Hey, this is John Ferguson. Welcome to Coffee Tech Talk. It's another Tuesday night at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. And I'm here with Marty Rowe out of Kansas City. How's it going, Marty?
It's going great, going great. Deep inside equipment this week.
Right? Like what's going on? It's like raining like equipment and snow.
Yeah.
It's not raining snow. It doesn't rain snow. It's snow, and it rains rain, right?
Yeah, but these major catastrophes with espresso machines are snowballing. There you go.
No doubt. Oh, no doubt about it. We can't start off a good show without a bad dad pun. But,
there you go.
Which is actually
taking your job.
Just wonderful. Well, we got it. Hey, so today we've got a huge topic to discuss. We're going to talk about coffee leaf rust, which, well, I kind of, with Pacific Coffee Research with Werner Thie out of, that's based in Hawaii. So we're going to get a glimpse of what good weather looks like today. About 7 hours behind. I don't know how many hours behind, but like it's still the start of their day or a new day or an old day. I don't know if they're like,
sure.
Yeah, we'll talk about time zone differences and whatnot and how beautiful it is there and how soon I can get there. So, yeah. So how are you doing? We've got
good. Have you still got snow on the ground for you?
Oh, it hasn't melted like much less, like maybe an inch, and then it's snowing a little bit more today just to kind of cover it up and do some snow. But the snowballing, I mean, talk about snowballs. It is like you pick up a snowball and you can just throw it. It's
perfect.
It's
snowball
like almost,
snow, huh?
It's like batting snow. You can just like get a couple, get your bat out and hit it.
Well, that's good.
So we've got, let's see here. We had a little late start today because, I'm still learning how to use Zoom after 25 episodes. I still can't push the right button, but this is Werner. And, you mentioned last week he was smiling. Well, he's still smiling, and he's actually still smiling, and he's in the waiting room. And so he's going to wave in the waiting room. There he is. And we provided you with a nice couch and maybe some water. It could be sparkling or not, depending on what you want. It could be whatever you want it to be. It's like tea, right?
Still like the gummy bears.
Gummy bears. Well, I'm drinking oolong tea and some fresh water out of the tap because Nebraska's got decent tap water. I don't know. Hey, so I got this crazy video. You got to check this out. I was out on the streets and I was looking at this video. Dietrich, you got it loaded up? Okay. And we're talking over this right now.
Okay.
So you see this kind of that little box is kind of sparking like fireworks?
Yeah, I love that. I've seen that before.
Does that look safe to you? Is that okay?
No,
Should you be touching that with your finger or something?
No, that's high power. And I see on the screen there you've got some fine print. Can you paraphrase that for us there? Is that the warning label for that?
Basically, the following video, which we just showed, depicts a service job intended only for a trained service technician. Actually, the problem there is, so what we're going to talk about today, everybody, do not attempt this on a machine that is live. That means plugged in and also turned on or plugged in. You got to take it, you got to turn it off, and you got to unplug it before you even get close to what we're talking about today. Failure to do that, to turn it off and unplug it may result in severe injury or death. And I don't say that lightly. And it's Marty, you want to talk about it? It says unplug your machine before removing any body panels. Failure to cut power to the machine may also result in high voltage shock or other severe injury. Also, some stuff about possibly voiding a warranty, on and on and on. You can read this, everybody. It's up there for a while. But Marty, let's talk about what this box is and what it does. Can you explain what's going on there?
John, what you've got there is the mechanism that turns the main power on and off to the heat element of that espresso machine. This particular espresso machine I'm familiar with, it has a couple of boilers. This happens to be for the steam boiler, and it's pressure actuated. So the higher the pressure, there's a spring-loaded bellows inside that device there that is moved with that pressure. And at some point in time, it builds up enough pressure that it opens up those contacts. It's just like a switch on the wall that it does automatically, but it opens it up so that it no longer has contact and heating. What you're seeing there is over time, those contacts get dirty and they don't make good contact. You can see in the upper left-hand corner and on the right-hand side, those pads, those little circular pads, those start getting tarnished and arced and charred, and they don't make good contact. And when they don't make good contact, they make good sparks.
Oh, I don't like good sparks. Not on an espresso machine. It freaks me out when I see it. I'm just like, don't touch that, turn it off and let's go ahead and fix it now. And there's something in the middle there, and you kind of pointed it out to me. Why that one looks all fresh and clean, but nothing's happening. Why do they have 3 of them?
Well, here's the deal. In the United States, most of our equipment is what's called on single phase, which uses 2 hot wires, 2 circuits on it. In Europe, or a lot of Italy and some places other than the U.S., they might use 3-phase, or they might separate multiple elements up, and so they would use all 3 of those in a different configuration. But for the most part here in the United States, we only use 2 of those, which basically what that does is that leaves 1 free. So John, tell us what you did on that.
Well, I'll tell you what.
It's a shade tree trick, but it's not a fix. It's let's get by them a little bit of time.
Well, check this out. Yeah, this is underneath, right?
Yeah.
I mean, open exposed wire on both of the wires going to the pressure stat, or what else would you call it? Pressure stat or contactor box or whatever. Is a contactor box that's hooked to the pressure stat? Those are 2 different things, same thing?
Well, we've
got a lot to talk about
today.
today.
Into contact, but you might not know this, John, but inside espresso machines is a pretty hot, it's steamy, it's hot, and wires tend to get brittle, and you'll see that. And definitely be careful.
Well, let's talk about what we talked about as far as like that extra thing in the middle there. Dietrich, you want to show the final video that we have?
Yeah, what you were able to do, John, is you've got 2 circuits on that switch, or on that pressure control, and a 3rd unused set of contacts switch. And so what you were able to do is move the wires off of that one that was arcing, not making good contact, swing them over onto the unused one. And that actually is a pretty good fix for that circuit. But the other one that has been in use just as long as that one that had failed, probably not long.
Exactly. Like if one fails, one's probably coming up, and those wires were really brittle. And you also said recommend high temp wire. And I'm wondering, can I go to my local hardware shop and pick that up pretty easily, or do you got to get a special order for that?
If you want to go back, and you probably should, the espresso equipment uses a silicone based. It's a soft, easy to bend wire, rated high temperature. They probably aren't going to have that, but a electrical supply house would.
Gotcha. All right. Well, so let's move on to this. We've got a huge episode today. Like, we got to get to Werner because he's got so much really cool stuff to talk about visiting Hawaii and coffee rest and COVID and all this stuff and like all these different things. But you got another different pressure stat here that's on a 2-group linear. I'm thinking La Marzocco.
There's different configurations, and you mentioned the word contactor. Now the pressure switch that you had that failed is not on one of these. That pressure switch has the ability to carry up to 30 amps. It can carry the full load of the heat element directly through that switch. These little switches, and I don't know if you've got the ability to put your cursor on it. This also has a switch, but it's that small circular
You mean
device
this little red dot? Or the black one?
It's that black circle, about the size of a silver dollar. That does the exact same thing, but it is nowhere near capable of carrying the load. It only has one contact on it. So this type of configuration uses that switch, which is works in the same manner, but instead of sending the power from that switch directly down to the heat element, that switch is not capable of carrying that load. What this design does is it pulls in a contactor that's very similar to the pressure switch that you had, that is capable of pulling in contacts that can carry the full load. So the actual load that's on that micro switch or that small switch is only the electromagnet within that contactor. So your original one that you had was actuated by pressure. That's actuated by pressure. The contactor that would replace that, which is off to the left behind all those wires there, looks very similar, but instead of pressure tube going to it, it's got the two wires to it, making an electromagnet to pull that in, to send that power in. Totally different configuration.
Well, I'm going to have to listen to this episode
does the same
again.
Thing.
We should spend another episode on this one, because this is a good topic. But I just wanted to say, high level there, if you see sparks, call a technician. Don't try to fix it yourself. You can shock yourself, and it's very dangerous. So again, fair warning. But I have a question for somebody else. Tamara, I wanted to ask you, Tamara, maybe you're watching, maybe you're not, but you will someday, because I'm going to text you, be like, hey, Tamara, you got to watch this. Can I ask you what's going on here? I'm going to see if I can play this video. What is that, Tamara? I don't know. Dietrich, do you want to chime in there for Tamara, or what do you think?
Yeah, Dietrich, you're a top-notch barista. What's going on there?
I wouldn't say top-notch, but that is something that is taught by baristas, good baristas all around the world, not to do.
Ooh, carpal tunnel right there.
Too is you don't want to be tamping with the base and palm of your hand. You want to be tamping with your fingers. And
right there, ouch!
Yeah,
right there.
You don't want to be
That's carpal
that.
tunnel. I got it, both hands, not good.
And the thing is too is you beat up your tamper, you beat up your portafilter. That's something you don't want to do. And on top of that, when you're settling coffee in that manner too, there's a higher chance of creating channeling. So realistically, you want to just grind it out, distribute if you want to distribute, or if you got a good tampon, just go right in, tamp it nice, and then throw that sucker in the machine.
I just thought that was a little fun thing to share today. And let's move on to this. Marty, what is this?
Well, people ask me questions like this, and I can sound like I really know what I'm talking about when I say, well, that's Roya. Some people would call that coffee rust. And that's about it. I've pretty much exhausted my knowledge of this. I know that it's not good for the coffee plant.
Look at that. Those are coffee plants without leaves. That's the result of what happens after a while, right?
Well, that doesn't look like a healthy plant at all.
How about that one? Can you harvest that? Nothing. Zero. You can use this for fire sticks and build a nice little fire with it.
Yeah.
But you can't make a living off of it. And this is absolutely probably very low to no maintenance.
I'm real excited about today's show, simply because we've got someone, Werner, that is knowledgeable about what's going on here.
This guy,
what
Werner,
to do about it, what can be done about it. The guy that smiles.
Let's bring him in. Let's bring him in. We've been waiting way too long. It's almost 7:20, and we're 15 minutes into the show. And we finally get to say hi to Werner. Werner, how's it going? How are you doing?
It's going great. So with Hawaii and living on Hawaii, you always have good weather, and that helps a lot.
That would help me.
It helps me have you there to bring in that spirit to this cold winter land of Nebraska right now. But this is kind of a really interesting topic for me, and I think that we kind of talked a little bit about this book that you mentioned that you're like, Stuart McCook wrote a book called Coffee is Not Forever, which is a global history about coffee leaf rust. And if you kind of Google this, you can find a couple webinars about it, and want to get too deep into it. But I'm going to preface a couple things, and then we're gonna go over to Hawaii and talk about what coffee rust is doing. And then at the end of the show, we're going to get to know who you are, because we like to do it backwards. We like to do the intro at the outro, right? So what we have here is I've done a couple of these things about coffee rust, read the book, and that's about all I know. I'm not a scientist or anything like that, but I was like looking at at the beginning of COVID last March in 2020, I was looking at like all of the recommendations that they were making for how to slow the spread of the coronavirus by saying, stay 6 feet apart, you know, wash your hands, don't touch your mouth. When you're in public, wear a mask, you know, wash your hands if you're home, stay sick. You're not supposed to be going to crowded bars, all this stuff, right? And I was looking at like what the recommendations were for, you know, coffee leaf rust. It was very similar, plant distancing, saying like the plants are too close. The leaf to leaf contact is really easy for these spores to jump. And I, you know, read somewhere that only needs a droplet of water to spread. So if it's raining, that droplet of water can then hop over to another plant if they're the plant distancing there. Wind can carry these spores too. So if you don't have any trees or a forest that's really thin and it's nothing but coffee, it's easily spreadable. And then workers in the field too. If you're not washing your boots, you're carrying it with you to field. And then there's the social and political aspects of things of you know, what to do and what not to do, what chemicals to have, and just a mess of recommendations, not a mess, but quite a bit of things to take care of and to think about. And Pacific Coffee Research, there's the logo, there you are. And you're located on the big island of Kona, is that right? I think,
Yes,
yes.
we are
And
just looking down. So
yeah.
whoever was on Big Island knows how to reach us by just walking straight up from the airport.
And so coffee rust on the island or on the islands in Hawaii it's relatively a new concern. Is that correct? I mean, how many years has coffee rust been in Hawaii, to your knowledge, roughly?
It was first detected last October on Maui. And then soon thereafter, yes, reports came in that it was suspected in the Kona area too. And yes, it's confirmed to be on Big Island.
So that means that I was just wrong when I said it's been a couple of years. It was just a couple, like less than a year. And I think that Dietrich, if I think you could speak up a little bit too. I think we're having a little difficulty hearing you, Werner, but we're good. Yeah, it's kind of a new concern, and I was talking with Madeline also. I think that works at Pacific Coffee Research with you, and the entire team doing a great job of really with a lot of communication and information. And this PowerPoint presentation that we put together here was from you, and I just love it because this is the kind of stuff that I think that if anybody is going to Hawaii, would like to you know, be prepared to know and to understand before, you know, visiting a coffee farm. So here's the first slide. It says prior to arriving on other farms, we have recommendations of you know, getting your car washed and go to commercial car wash. And vacuum the upholstery. And when coming on site, disinfecting tires and disinfecting and spray. Why is this important? And do you see this happening in Hawaii, Werner?
So far, we don't really know because the adversary, the fungal spores, they are so small that they can't be really easily detected on cars, on clothes, on everything. But they ride whenever they can hitch a ride. And yes, rides are plenty these days with people commuting, with farm workers migrating from farm to farm. So lots of way to travel for the spores. They also ride on the wind. Science shows that spores over infected areas were detected up to kilometers high in the air. So seemingly, according to Stuart McCook's book, he mentions that they might have traveled even across the sea, riding on the wind. So
I see. So how do you think, or what are the suspicions, or, I mean, there's probably no proof on how it got to Hawaii, but are there some speculations on how it was transmitted to the islands? Was it through people bringing back the spore with, on their clothing, on their boots with an airplane coming straight from another area that was, from a different part of the world that might have had coffee rust. Was that brought on through people traveling, or like you said, it could have been on a boat or any of those? It's really hard to tell, right? I think.
Yes, it was first detected in a pretty remote location on Maui, but a spot which people were usually shown that feral coffee exists there. And it might well be that somebody carrying spores and touching a tree would have infected that tree. And from there on, yes.
I love this. This photograph is beautiful. This is like what it looks like outside for you today, probably, right? Is this kind of what it looks like on a normal day in Hawaii? Pretty much. So I think
at 6 in.the morning, yes.
Nice. And it looks like she's there's a woman in the bottom right hand corner, is kind of walking the fields there, and I think it's kind of a nice, a very good representation of these recommendations of when to visit other coffee farms. So when I come to Hawaii, this is what I'm gonna do, Werner. I'm gonna take a shower just once. And I'm just take a shower when I get up and when I go to sleep and before I visit a farm. And and I'm going to sing happy birthday 3 times. Is that right? I don't know. And then have a fresh change of clothes. And do not come in your work boots or shoes that you have worn on any other farm. That makes sense too. Don't stray off the pathways. So if you see a bunch of coffee trees, just don't go jumping into them, right? And like I said, don't walk through the fields. Never touch coffee trees. And always disinfect shoes with disinfectant spray or isopropyl alcohol, which sounds a lot like COVID, right? Sort of like wash your hands and carry a disinfectant. And also, this is really interesting recommendations for like when you're traveling anywhere in the world that has coffee rust. This is applicable in Hawaii, but this is really good recommendations for if you're going to Peru or even Guatemala, like to bring this so close to home really, really has impacted the way that I see and I feel about visiting farms in the future, taking these recommendations and applying them on how you're walking fields and picking coffee in a coffee rusted, infested area. And then you go to another farm in a different country. It's just kind of exacerbates the spread that we see here. And this one is talking about when you're pruning or stumping. This gets a little bit more technical, I think. But it says here, take your time for yeah, would you like to walk us through this slide, Werner, as far as what does pruning or stumping do, and why is that an important stage for identifying?
So the thing is that coffee usually undergoes a certain type of management of whatever is left growing on the tree. So stumping or pruning refers to cutting the wood away and letting the wood grow, meaning you might cut infested trees, having infested leaves, and with that the problem of spreading it becomes exacerbated to a point where you with the dead leaves then being dry and brown, you have a really great avenue to spread the stuff even more. So spraying the infested areas with or the infested areas on the tree, on the leaves, with disinfection spray might cut down on the live spores. Shredding the material manually, if you think of shredding wood, then you usually see that huge spout on a shredder, which yes, brings the material high into the air, and with that, starting the spores to spread. So keeping the material separate, keep them covered and readily, and as soon as possible go into composting. And yes, contain whatever can be contained.
Right, and I think that we have another great slide here. I love these photographs. So kudos to the photographers and the curation of these photos in this presentation. For here, you did mention shredding the infested material manually, and then to mix in with properly maintained compost. And it says here at a certain temperature, and is that's to kill the rust, apparently, right?
Yes, in these areas you would expect the spores to die because they usually live at around 26 degrees Celsius or about 85 Fahrenheit. They live at that temperature, so 65 or 150 is pretty high for them.
Dietrich has his hand up from above, so I think we have a question from either the audience or Dietrich. What do you got?
Yeah, we do have a question from the audience. And Christopher, I hope I pronounced this correctly, but Christopher Openheis, yeah,
he's back on the show.
Yeah,
hey, Christopher.
Christopher,
we just got to give him a Zoom link.
Christopher wanted to ask how long can those spores stay potentially be dangerous and stay on your clothes and boots, Werner?
Good question.
So the thing is that the spores might be dormant for times up to 6 months. So, a good compost cures, say, within 4 to 6 months. So if you have a coffee leaf rust infested leaves in the compost, then better let it sit for 6 months, which would take care of the spores.
But I would say, like, if you're going to a farm and you have coffee rust, on you, you should probably shower at the end of the day, and that should probably get rid of that. But if you don't shower for a week, you've got a couple issues going on there. Moving on. I had to throw that in there. Just, okay. So when working with infested plant material, this is really interesting. I love this. There was no picture because the material is great. It says Kona is under a no burn advisory from the Clean Air Branch. So what is this slide about, and why is this important?
Yes, so whenever you have infested material, then people tend to burn stuff. So I once had a guy here who was really afraid of insects and those little centipedes we have coming in different sizes up to, say, 10 inches. And he actually told me, oh, whenever I see one of them, I torch them and send them back to hell. So people tend to burn stuff whenever it's not good. And with Pele, or our volcano goddess, having taken over again with our volcano starting to fill with lava, again, we have a lot of fog in the air, volcanic fog, and with that we have a no burn advisory, so no open fires are allowed currently.
And then you have some things here about bringing a material to the green waste dump. Obviously, that could contract and spread there. And then do not shred material with machines. That's probably because if you're using that machine with other products, it might spread through that. That's pretty much the logic behind that too. And then not sharing tools or machines from other farms. Again, do you see a lot of that happening where you have a lot of people borrowing tractors or borrowing tools and machines from other farms? And is this an issue that really has to be addressed, or just a concern that needs to be put up front? Like, hey, if you're going to do this, try not to do it because of rust.
Shredders are pretty expensive machines at that size. So these machines are most of the time shared because you only have a certain time frame where you use them. So having such an expensive machine sitting in the shop for 11 months is really not taking care of it well. So yes, especially shredders are shared, but this also goes down to hand tools and to shears and scissors and tools you might use in when pruning or cutting trees.
It seems like following all of these rules might also help spread the the concerns or the coronavirus in a sense too. But we've learned that pets probably don't have so much of an issue with spreading the COVID. But when owning farm animals, this one got cut off. Darn it! Oh, when I was editing this, that's too bad. Beautiful kitty, love the kitty. Kitties are nice. Animals are excellent spreaders of coffee leaf rust, though, right? Is this your cat? Is this your kitty? I don't know. Do you know
No.
this cat? It's black. I like it. It looks like the one that I have at home, but it's not because it's in Hawaii, maybe. But it's sitting on parchment, which is nice parchment. But so the idea here is to restrict the access of your furry friends from kind of like carrying this. How did they come about knowing? I mean, it's pretty logical too that they were just taking. Are we talking like cattle and all types of livestock, or mainly just your pets, or both? I don't know.
It's mainly smaller animals like dogs, which are roaming pretty freely, cats, which are also roaming freely, but generally animals which would go under a coffee tree because the coffee leaf rust spore buries itself on the underside of the leaf. So animals which pass underneath the tree might pick up a hell of a lot of spores when just walking in the coffee fields.
So I would say dogs would be one that would be kind of a concern too, because they're a little faster and more rambunctious and with a wider distance than cats. Maybe, I don't know. That's a good question. I've always wanted to ask. I should ask someone. Like if you put a cat and a dog outside, which one's going to go further, farther, faster, right? Would it be a cat or a dog, like wandering from home? Would a dog be like more ambitious to go further? I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, that's another episode. Let's talk about that later. We'll talk about, will a cat or a dog go further from home? So general practices when caring for coffee trees here. This is another great slide of different things to be mindful of. Can you walk us through this slide to talk about what skirt trees means?
So skirting trees means you cut the lower branches, which tend to lie on the ground the moment they carry coffee because they're getting heavier, and contact with the surrounding vegetation might lead to wet spots, which would let the rust develop. So keeping the tree well ventilated cuts down on humidity within the tree and thus giving the spores less chance to develop. So what we can learn from the Stewart cookbook is that we really should care for our trees. The thing is, there is a lot of coffee worldwide, which is under pressure price-wise, which leads to cut the whole attention the trees actually get. It's also difficult to care for, say, 60,000 trees. To be diligent on every single one.
Yeah, I think like pruning, 500 hectares of tree, coffee trees is quite a job to do. But these are all great recommendations, and I like the last four that say if you're spraying fungicides or fungicides, I don't know how you want to say it. This is a last resort measure,
yes,
as they are dangerous, and So how do you use fungicide in this scenario on Hawaii?
So yes, last resort measure, and you can just take it from the guy spraying on that image, which is carrying actually pretty light clothing for spraying, I would say.
Right.
And one thing which is when spraying fungicides, because of the leaf rust sitting underneath the leaves, and you have to spray from below, which is basically right into your face.
I see. So you have to spray up, like it's sort of like a. That's pretty dangerous. Okay, and also, you know, dangerous for the oceans, and they are toxic. And I was in the Peace Corps back in the day, about 20 years ago, and you know, one of my significant roles was to translate and to identify the different levels of toxicity of different chemicals, and they are scary. If they have a red label, that means you could either just mix it wrong, and these things can kill you. I don't know about the fungicides with coffee rust. I'm sure it could be not as lethal, obviously. So I'd like to know what, well, you know, maybe someday I'll figure it out. What's the toxicity level of the most common fungicide for coffee rust? I don't know.
So these are really special label products which need to be worked with kind of a strict management, also containment of leftovers. Yes, in coffee as well as in other agricultural areas, it's common that more gets mixed of that product than it gets used. And then the question always is, can I dump the leftovers onto the ground? And I would say with fungicides, this is actually not recommended.
And it's that I see that as a problem too, where if you know, this idea of, well, just put more on and it will do a better job. And I think that is a false you know, logic statement, because when there's a certain point of there's a threshold of acceptance and tolerance, like where you meet a certain level, no matter how much you put on it, it's not going to do any better. It has met its capacity and its performance. But this is a great slide too, where we kind of, you know, have to realize here, how do, you know, healthy trees can coexist with coffee rust. What is this, you know, what's the future hold for Hawaii and coffee rust with this slide, you know, talking about coexistence, and how do you feel about that? What's the future hold here?
We expect the coffee leaf rust to develop over the course of the next few years and become a permanent resident on the island, which means we have to deal with it in a first responder way, but then we also have to deal with it in a systematic way. And from Stuart Cook's book and the last 200 years he describes, we see that good management practices, trying to coexist, systemically planting and interspersing coffee trees with other trees, then you get a more diverse farm. You get maybe less product, of course, but in the end, yes, it's you against or with coffee leaf rust, and against is always, as we see with COVID developing in the US. Yes.
I have a question here. Can you vaccinate all of these trees and then have social distancing and washing? Can we wash the leaves' hands and make sure that they're all taking showers every day? I mean, the relationship here between COVID and coffee rust, just it doesn't boggle. It doesn't. It's so obvious to me that this is all about disease transmission, and what we do as humans, as organisms of this planet. We are plants. Well, we are animals, they are plants, but we live in the same ecosystem and we deal with the same pressures and the same transmission. And it's really something that if we could apply to every situation, it's kind of, I think we have another question from above. Dietrich, what do you got?
Yeah, we got a question. Werner, Shawnee Cook asks, are infestations required to be reported to an agency to be overseen? Is the management of it left to individual farms? So is there an organization that's overseeing some of this coffee infestation, or is it just these individual farms that are just like finding out about it, learning about it, and having to deal with it on their own?
You possibly should report this to a Department of Ag and specifically to the extension branch of Hawaii University. So these guys are also furnishing and providing us with good material, like posters to pop up at your farm, where you see how coffee leaf rust actually looks like, and these basic rules we just discussed. So yes, I would say we need to educate people, but we also need to keep kind of a track and a tally of what is infected and where the potential bad spots are. The problem is that people, and there is a lot of shaming going on in this, and shaming and blaming does not really help, because we are in this together as we are in COVID-19.
Yes.
So shaming and blaming does not do what we need to do. We need to stand together and attack this together. And that's why PCR is very committed to spread the word. We are currently developing on-farm courses for people on how to detect coffee leaf rust in early stages, on how to disinfect people, and work with different schemes on how people can come to a farm still. I mean, we are sitting in the middle of coffee trees, which will in 5 years probably be history. So the systemic changes we have to implement is we need to change cultivars, which is a politically pretty fraught process. Again, a lesson from Stuart McCook's book. Yes, we need the politics, and we need the government to step in and help the farmers along in this situation.
That's a really interesting thing that you brought up about switching the type of varieties or cultivars. I forgot which one is which or whatever. But so traditionally on Hawaii, you have Typica. Is that correct? And that came from, I think, Guatemala or somewhere in Central America, was brought over to Kona. And that was more of your traditional cup profile. And now, with, coffee rust, as with in Colombia, I think that they introduced Castillo or some other types of coffee varieties that were, kind of changing the landscape and the tradition of what was being grown there. And there's some resistance, no pun intended, to change, but at the same time, without that change, there may not be a future in coffee, is what you're saying. So is that concerning to some of the Kona producers, that there might be this loss of identity, or with the traditional Kona profile? Or could it be an exciting opportunity to spread or to grow what can be possible on Kona Island? So you have the traditionalists and you have the progressive. So, and that becomes political, right? Like, keep it as it is, or no, we got to stay. I don't know. It's an interesting argument. It's an interesting predicament to be in. How do you see people handling that conversation? Is there, I don't know. What are you going to do?
Yes, there is a lot. We are going to change cultivar as soon as we are allowed to do it. We are currently working on bringing down the quarantine period for plant material brought onto the island. Currently, we have 2 years of complete isolation of plants. That, in my opinion, should be cut back to, say, 1 year at most. And we should be able to propagate also while in quarantine. We would need private quarantining facilities, and we really need more diversity, because, as we all know, coffee is a very, very narrow band genetic plant. So there is very little diversity in coffee anyway. And limiting things to monocultures of a certain species is not really helping to develop resistances. And as we have seen, we needed Robusta to be crossed in, or Moccas, which might yield plants which are resistant to coffee leaf rust.
I see. But that could hurt the cup profile, like a Catamore. We have Catawai and Timor. When Timor is what cut with Robusta, I don't know. I forget all the trees and the relationships there. But Marty, do you have any questions? How about you have anything like that's on your mind? We got to have you join the conversation. And Dietrich, you too. I'm going to stop talking.
I want to say that I come up with probably a half a dozen questions along the way, and just about the time they pop in my head, Werner answers them.
Right. Dietrich's got his hand up. You want Dietrich to go?
Yeah,
Dietrich,
yeah.
what do you got?
Dietrich.
Anybody from the audience? You're just popping out of your own head. What do you got?
Yeah, this is something that I guess, Werner, could you break down a little bit, I guess, when was this first being discovered? And then where did we see this kind of originate from? And then, how long does it take to kind of have a farm go from having coffee rust to like cycling it out and being free of coffee rust? So a few questions.
Being free of coffee leaf rust, I would say, is, as I said, it's here with us forever. It's not happening, but it needs to be cut back to a certain level. Because we always have that picture in mind that coffee is cultivated on farms. But the thing is, we have tons of feral coffee on the island. So coffee is everywhere. So even if all farms are managed properly, then we have still a lot of feral coffee, which just is the breeding station for the next wave of the rust.
And do we know where this kind of all had originated from then?
Yeah.
Yes, the rust was, according to Stuart McCook, was first seen around and in Ceylon. So from there it spread around the world, and seemingly Hawaii is now one of the last coffee growing regions which is affected.
Yeah, I think that's a great. That's a great point again, Dietrich, and this book again, Stuart McCook, the one that we are referencing throughout this presentation, goes through a very deep history of the transmission from Ceylon, like you said, which is south of India, right? Okay, in the Indian Ocean, and then from there, almost kind of like following similar paths as coffee has gone, but.
Hey, Werner. Do these spores, does the coffee rust affect any other plants other than the coffee plant?
Seemingly not. It's a very specialized and well-adapted form of a fungus. It also differs from other fungal infections in the way it buries itself into the cell without first penetrating it. So it's a very interesting, scientifically speaking, it's a very interesting fungus. Also. And it has to deal, whatever it's doing, it has to deal with the high level of caffeine in the plant. So caffeine being toxic to most insects and also to fungal spores.
I have some fun questions I need to ask. So I want to go to Hawaii. How do you feel about people coming to Kona during the time of coronavirus and also coffee rust? And I see that there were recommendations here in the slide presentation. What's the vibe, like with tourism right now on the Big Island? Is it something that people are hesitant to see come back, or is it something that really people want to see? And I heard that in order to get on a plane, you have to have a negative COVID test and whatnot. So there's a lot of things in place. And I'm just trying to plan my vacation, honestly, Werner. So,
Yes, we are a very, very welcoming environment, as you all know, from the aloha we all carry with us. The thing is, we have very, very little resources for dealing with medical emergencies. So out of the few 10 ventilators and beds we can spare, we usually have fully booked for the people being ill with different things than COVID. Yes, we can't carry a lot of tourism these days.
But so does that mean should I not go?
I can't hand you a recommendation in this area, but
Okay. That's good. Okay, I'll just leave it at that. I'll be like, I want to go. How did you get there? How long have you been you living in Hawaii, and what's the background? Literally behind you, I see roasters. So obviously, like, does all coffee, like Pacific Coffee Research, what is that about, and how long has that been around? So tell us about you, Marty, and then you can ask about your questions here in a minute, right? Like your traditional, like, yeah, all right. So how long have you been on the island? Longer than coffee, Russ, right?
Yes, I started to come to Hawaii in 2002, originally coming from Switzerland. And yes, we established ourselves on this farm in 2009, where we built a home and started to plant coffee trees, not doing it in an industrial way, but in an experimental way. So we are really happy and content if we can produce whatever we can drink, which is a lot, by the way. So,
exactly. And you have a couple staff members or participants or different people involved with coffee, Pacific Coffee Research. What is that about, and what kind of services or topics or information or education does Pacific Coffee Research provide?
We started Pacific Coffee Research in, say, as a first idea out of the idea that we need more coffee education. So a coffee school was in the business plan of an ill-fated company here, which employed one of my partner and another guy. So Brittany Horn is the one who stayed with coffee research. Brian Webb had to go back to the mainland due to various reasons. And then we onboarded Madeline, with both of them being the main stakeholders here in the company.
Madeline's pretty popular. You know, I've heard about Madeline through the Specialty Coffee Association's U.S. chapter. She's a coordinator of sorts, similar to myself. And we were chatting one day, and I'm like, hey, we should talk about Hawaii. So kudos to that. That's great. It is, the educational aspect is definitely working. So yeah, Marty, do you have any questions? We are about ready to wrap this hour up. You have your special questions.
Well, I always want a smiling story. There must be more to Werner than coffee. Do you have any special hobbies or any stories of anything that has happened to you in your career that you are particularly fond of or enjoy, that you would like to share with us?
You know, one of the things I believe as an old guy, and which brings a lot of joy and a big smile on my face, is to work with young people. And that's exactly what Pacific Coffee Research is all about. It's bridging the gap between old people not living segregated in elderly homes, but being active and work in conjunction with young professionals, and we direly need young professionals on the island.
So, very good.
Yeah,
young professionals like me.
I'm surprised, right? Like, I'm surprised that there's a lack of young professionals that want to be on the one of the most. I haven't been there. I don't know. Is it nice? I don't know, but I might, if I go, I might never come back. But I'm not that young anymore, so I mean, I might be in the middle age group. I'm not quite sure where I fit in. I'll just be a tourist. Marty,
That's-
you're looking pretty young. You could still,
I was going to say, he's talking about young people working with young
Yeah.
people, and I'm thinking, well, like me, yeah, that would work. No, that's admirable. That's very, very good of you to have that desire to do that.
You got one more. What's the opposite of the most,
Oh, yeah.
very,
What's your biggest struggle day to day? What comes up maybe in a season that you go, okay, we've got to get through this, but I don't like it. Has there been anything that's just
well, other than coffee rust? We'll just take that off the table
well,
because we just talked about that.
yeah, that's low hanging fruit.
Yeah. Low hanging branches, which you need to skirt.
Yeah, is there anything that you struggle with?
No, I wouldn't say we struggle with problems because just to let you know, and I watched your presentation in the beginning with fascination, I'm an electrical engineer.
Aha.
Yeah. So do we get it right?
Finally.
Meaning, whenever I see a problem, I need to fix it. So problems are my way of life. So I'm certainly not bothered about things. I try to solve them.
Excellent.
Yeah. I'm glad you like that, the sparks and the fireworks. I'm hoping that we did that properly and we gave enough warning of deadly fires and whatnot. Well, I guess that's going to be our show. I hope that everybody has sort of taken away something from this episode. I surely have. These are the parting words. My parting words are thanks. Thanks for sharing. A wonderful slide. I was thinking, Marty, when you asked them struggling in Hawaii, I'm like, God, yeah, you're going to get a really great answer there. Like, yeah, it's terrible living in Hawaii. I don't know how many times I've heard that. I don't think I've ever heard that. Maybe some people get like this. It's not brain freeze. It's like Hawaii, they get fever or something. Like they get like the island is too much for them to handle, and they've got to go to the mainland. I don't know. Have you ever heard of that? People freaking out like there's too much water, too much sun, too many
I mean,
beaches.
10 out of 10 people coming to the island, 9 leave within 6 months.
Okay.
Either you get it or you leave, and most of the people decide that they want to leave. We are a pretty centrally deprived environment. The weather always the same, the temperature always the same. Yes, the night's always the same. The moon,
the beach water is always warm. I mean, the mountains are always kind of cloudy and cool and boring, and there's like lots of plants and coffee and
so
terrible.
Call it the very
I can't wait to not go there, but I'll just have to go just to suffer through it.
Yeah, we'll just have to do a show there. We'll just have to do a show there.
Yeah, well, sooner or later. Well, I'm gonna call it a night and try to cook up some stuff for dinner. My name is John Ferguson. This is Coffee Tech Talk on Tuesday. You can get in touch with me at coffeetechcentral@gmail.com or just call me. You can find my number somewhere. Just Google John Ferguson phone number somewhere. I don't know. You'll just call random John Ferguson. There's only one of us. Marty, how can we get in touch with you, and what do you do, and where do you want to? What's your?
Well,
what's your deal?
I have another question
Okay,
for Werner. Do you sell coffee? Do you export? Can someone buy coffee from you?
Oh, PCR, of course, does that. Me personally, I don't sell coffee. So, yes, get in contact with Coffee Research, and they can provide out of all the varieties and types of coffee we grow here.
Excellent. Well, I'm Marty Rowe.
Wait, hold on. I heard some whispering in the background.
And of course, a whole new series which revolves around COVID, which is remote coffee tasting. So
Yes.
that's a product PCR really proud of, and which expands and tries to bridge the gap between the islands and the mainland.
Well, that's intriguing.
You're
That's
going to
really
send
neat.
me coffee and I'm going to cup it with you? Pretty much.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, put me on the list, and I'll throw down whatever money that, you know, reasonably priced, which I can afford, whatever that might be. I don't know. You can let me know, and we'll find out more information. Where should we go to get in touch with you and to find out more information about that? Like Werner, which, like a website, is it coffeeresearch.org or pacificcoffeeresearch.org?
It's PCR.coffee.
Oh, that's so simple. That is like way better than what I just said. PCR.coffee. All right. Excellent. Well, I will see you there. I will go visit that. And I guess no one asked me about my lighting situation tonight. Does anybody like the black light that I have going on? I got some grow lights because, you know, it's the dead of winter and I'm trying to grow like lime trees in my living room. And I haven't killed them yet. So I guess they work. Marty?
So far, so good.
So far, so good. They haven't killed me yet. So how do we get in touch with you, Marty?
Okay.
Yep.
Marty Rowe in Kansas City, workbenchcoffeelabs.com. And we repair, install, and we teach.
Excellent. Well, hey, thank you all for being here tonight. Hope that, hope you all had fun. I sure did. All right. So next week, we'll see what we get. I don't know what we're going to do. Maybe nothing. Maybe it'll be like a surprise. Who knows? Maybe we'll go to, I don't know, somewhere. We'll go somewhere. All right. And Dietrich,
if you got some suggestions, guys, to, you know, of anybody who you want us to chat with, definitely leave it in the comments of the videos. We'd love to hear your thoughts on who we should be chatting with or who you want to hear come on the show. So definitely let us know.
And we still need to do that international latte art throwdown and also cultural exchange between cafes that are, you know, located in drastically different areas of the planet, and see what's going on, let's say, in downtown Tokyo, or at the same time, you know, what's going on in Paris, and get those two cafes together and see what kind of gadgets and technology they're using, what kind of coffee they're drinking, and what the culture's like, you know, with coffee in those areas. And yeah,
Excellent.
So we're looking forward to organizing that. So if anybody out there wants to help us organize that, give me a call. Absolutely. So I will say something like good night and good luck, or is that like trademarked? I don't know. Good night, goodbye, and see you next week. Marty,
thank you.
I'm done.
Thank you, Werner. Thank you, Werner.
Thank you, Werner.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And the whole staff there. Thank you for the PowerPoint. Had a great night. Have a good night. Bye.